and welcome to Corporate Culture, your podcast about cooperation, conflict, and culture at work. This is the first episode of 2025, and we want to start this year playfully. Our conversation today is about playfulness at work. Together, we will explore what playfulness actually is, what adults can learn from children, how we can be more playful at work, and much more. And to talk about all of that, I am very happy to have Jose Antonio Gordillo Martorell with me today. Jose, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you, Paul. Very happy to be with you starting the week.
Amazing. To start with, I know that you have many different professional activities. Can you give us a little overview just to have a general idea about what you do professionally and how it's connected to playfulness?
Yeah, the main thing is I love to play. And I'm very well inner child connected. I think this is the most important. But besides this, the official or the formal profile, sorry, is I'm a very curious and inquisitive mind working in culture and education so many years ago as a creating things in education roles in museums, in strategy, in creativity, in community weaving and co-creation. And yeah, I have been involved in these different roles in museums from different countries of the world. And from 3 years ago, I started this my own company called Culture Inquiry. That is a company specialized in crazy projects involving children and young people and using play as a main core value to do everything. So this is mainly my bite of who is Jose.
Nice. So when you talk about the work in museums, that means that you help museums collaborate better. Okay. Could you say it like that?
To play,
Mm-hmm.
I think is when you support organizations, especially culture organizations, to be much more playful and has this play recover the play pleasure in their own and include in their own vision, mission, mindset, agency, everything change. I think play, one of the, we will talk a little bit about this afterwards, one of the power of play is that is an agent of change and can guide you in the process of system thinking's change in a very different way as we usually think about consultancy or strategy or planning or whatever. So this is my main commitment is support others to rediscover the joy of play, involving children in the process as a leaders, as a role models, and be open to consider what they find in the process. This is mainly the summary of my role today.
Nice. And I remember we had a previous conversation, and I asked you, I think, a couple of times about goals. And for me, at the beginning, it was very hard to understand this concept of doing something without a goal, as you said. And we'll talk about it in a second as well, maybe to clarify a bit. But before, I would be interested to hear, where does this interest for playfulness come from? Did you have a specific moment in your life when you said, okay, now I really would like to include play not only in my life but also in my work?
Yeah, obviously came from my childhood. I was a child who not only played constantly but was encouraged to do so as a way to learn everything. I was in a Montessori school, so uh, I try to. It's like in my very deep root mentality, connected with my first childhood memories. Um, and it's interesting because what I'm trying to learn is to constantly renew and restart this first phase of my life from 0 to 7 years old, but constantly nowadays in my current life. So it's not a Peter Pan complex, as somebody can think about, but I truly believe that this 0 7 phase years old in the life of everyone is the most creative, the most important, the ground of everything. The rest of your life is a kind of development of these first 7 years. And in a very natural and organic way, I realized that when you play, you can do everything. I mean, it's what you did when you were 3, 4, 5. You learn a language or several languages. You create your identity, who you are, by playing. You connect with others and create very deep social relationships and connections by playing with your friends, with your family, with your relatives, with your teacher, with everyone. You start to discover the power of the language. You create and invent by playing. So it's a kind of gateway to everything. So in a very natural way, I connect this first part of my life with the other parts of my life. And what stimulates me is to consider that something that can be changed, like when you take apart a mechano and put it back together again in a completely different way. So it was the process itself shows you a lot of fun, and you can be the pilot of this process to reconnect with this childhood part of you, bring it with you and experiment and expand. Nowadays, I think this is one of the most important things. I think we are living in a very sad fear societies in general, and we forget the joy of play. And I have some stories that I can share with you afterwards about the vital role of play, even in very extreme and hard circumstances, that can heal so many things at the same time. But answering to your question, is not a specific moment, is a kind of constant tribute to my childhood period that brings me and gives me a lot of hope and a lot of strength to face a lot of challenges and try and do it in a very confident way.
And you say that we are, I mean, that you feel connected to this first childhood years, and obviously when you are in these first years, you're very much connected because it's the present when you are a little kid. But I also remember for myself later when you were like a teenager or young adult, I feel that many people lose a bit the connection to the childhood, right? So there's kind of this moment where you maybe reject it, and then I don't know how it was for you, but at some point you reconnect. And was that a specific time of your life when you reconnected? Say like, actually, I want to go back to this very first phase.
Yes, it's so true. In the hard times, when you have a very traumatic experience, as I had, for example, one of them when I was working in Sweden, I had a very hard experience by a racist harassment with the team of the museum where I was working. This was the trigger of the childhood playful agency and memory. It's a kind of core of your identity, of your, and it's inexpugnable. I mean, it's not, even if it's attacked very seriously and provoke a very deep harm in the way some people can treat you or can try to harm you. You have like a kind of defense in these core childhood values that is not possible to to damage, and is in fact the ground of a big process of rebuilding yourself when you suffer or you pass for a traumatic situations like this one or other ones of violence or harassment or any kind of hard situation. You have always the possibility, and this is very important, to rebuild yourself from these core childhood core values. That's the reason, because it's so important to preserve children in their own expansion and development, because it's a kind of solid basement that you have for the rest of your life. And if it's deteriorate or if it's in some ways attacked, it can affect the rest of your life. But fortunately, I have this childhood core well rooted, well established, and that was pivotal to initiate process of healing by coming back to the feelings, emotions, memories, ways even to trust again. I think is very important. The play, if you analyze in a little bit in detail, is a trust exercise with others. You can't play if you don't trust. So trust is a very important value that you can get and re-edit again in your adulthood when it's questioned, seriously questioned or harmed or destroyed. You have like a kind of reserve, a kind of baseline. You can constantly come back to use it as a new ground to rebuild trust relationships with others, and using play to do it.
Yeah, the way I understand you, playing and playfulness can be some form of coping mechanism also for reality. And I also know a lot of examples of people who are turning to games, right, to cope with reality. They play video games or they have all kinds of games which is maybe more kind of an escape from reality. And then these two terms are often used very similarly, like games and play. And I would like to know if for you there's a difference, or what are the main differences between games and play?
Yeah, it's very interesting, your question, because we usually socially we identify both terms as a synonyms. And for me, can't be much more different. Because we have in this iceberg model, in the mentalities in the bottom of the model, this assumption that game and play are the same. And for me, for example, I can give you some characteristics of play that are very different from games. First of all, we constantly talk about play, and play for me can be not defined. And game can be defined, because game has rules and goals, but play has not rules and is not goal oriented. So it's much more free, much more diffuse, much more fuzzy that game. Game is much more structured. And usually you talk a lot about game, but play is very instinctive. uh, you need to, you just play, and you don't need to explain anything. And it's a wonderful example that something so incredibly important is not learned from anyone. You, from the beginning, when you're born, you know how to play because you are playing from the beginning with the body of your mother, with the light, with the air, with everything. So instinctively, mammals have this incredible instinct of play that is so amazing. I mean, anybody teach you to play when you burn. There is no manual, but you instinctively you are using from the 0 second to interact with with the world, and this is amazing. Not only you, my dog, for example, is one of the best
Yeah,
players I know.
our cat is the same.
Exactly. I mean, or cats. I mean, they are incredibly talented to play, and is so instinctive, and it's not goal oriented. And because of it's not goal oriented, you can find extraordinary things when you play. Not that you are not even you are not aware. uh, and this is something very different from games. The games are you have the path very clear, and you expect gain points or gain whatever. But play is not like that. Play is a behavior, is a characteristic of your personality, and it's not goal oriented. It's not transactional. It's so social. I mean, I don't know anybody who is thinking about, okay, let's play, and I will get this and this from this. If you observe children playing, they are not, it doesn't matter who is the ball of the soccer game. What is important is play, is play. Obviously they have rules in this, but it's much more fun without rules. Free play, especially free play in nature, is also something that is totally, that gives you the possibility to connect totally with the present. So it's a kind of flow. There is no future, there is no past, there is no fair, and is just the moment. And this is also connected with my previous answer about how psychologists use sometimes play to heal trauma situations, because it's from the present, realign the person with the present, give them a window to realign something that has been not properly managed in very hard situations of the past. So it's also a present connector, and you can also unlearn a lot of things by playing, not learn, unlearn. That is so important for me as a skill. Um, I would like to end my answer by sharing an incredible story I heard 1 week ago about Ukraine war, and how incredibly important is play as a difference from game for a community. I mean, it is a story of a Ukrainian city that was liberated from Russia occupation recently, and they were their priority to rebuild the place was not a hospital or a healthcare or a market or a school, as you presume. It was a playground, the playground, because the playground was the space to rebuild the whole community identity, because the children were so affected by the situation of monks closed in a very reduced space to protect them. So the first move to start again the community well-being and mental health was let's rebuild as quick as possible our playgrounds. And that gives you a very deep message about the importance of play for any human being to be what they really are.
Oh, it's a great story, yeah, and I can really relate to that. Would you say that there is a difference between child's play and adult's play?
I think this is a cliche. Again, is related with the previous cliche of the identification between play and game. Everyone loves to play, but we as an adults, we have been trained to don't give us permission to be happy playing as an adult and to give us permission to be as we really are. And this has a very deep root consequences and points. I mean, play is universal for all ages, everywhere. It is a part of our, as I mentioned, our identity as a human beings. It's instinctive. We share even with other species, as I mentioned, with my dog or the cats or whatever animal that are immediately playing with other. Playing is contagious. You don't have to prepare for it or plan it. It comes spontaneously and spreads everywhere. This differentiation between adults and children, or adults can only play at some moments in a playground, for example, is so artificial, because then you see the dynamics in so many playgrounds, and children are playing as the way you expect or is expected to play with some objects, some installations, and this is for me not free play. And the adults are watching their smartphones and scroll the digital screens. So it's a kind of lie, it's a kind of fake dynamic of play. And let share with you another wonderful story I was presenting a couple of weeks ago about this contagious effect of play in adults. It was a wonderful little girl starting. I was in a flight to Brussels, and it was a short flight, but a wonderful little girl started playing with the flight attendant's warning pilot, because she was struck by the sound when you activate the pilot, and the whole crew ended up playing with her. So it also made me think about the profound way they learn playing. I wrote an article called "Eating Light" about the experience. The girl was trying to eat the light of the warning because it was so appealed by the color of the warning and the sound. But the problem is that we are very brainwashed from an early age into believing that play is something only for leisure time, for free time. That is something superficial, that is something just to pass the time, just only that we can do when we have free time, and that's all. And so many times adults tell children, I don't have time to play. today is a school day. You need to hurry up. We need to go to the school. Just you will have time to play in the afternoon. Don't play. And that's the problem. That's when the problem begins. This artificial, violent differentiation between play and the serious things that the children must to follow, because then you expand this situation in the school, in the classroom, because, well, the school has its way to consider the time, and the time for play is clearly put in the breaks, not during the and that's, for example, something that I'm so happy to have in my childhood with this Montessori education, that they weave very well the play, the play mindset with your learning process.
Yeah. You know, when I'm now thinking about, for example, my cat or also myself, I feel that often we start playing when we are a little bit bored. So we sit around and there's nothing to do. And then, I mean, myself, I just start, playing, as you say, without a goal. It's just, I have nothing to do. I'm in holidays, for example, and I just, start playing around with some objects or with other people. And I find it interesting that you say that it's an artificial border, let's say, between leisure time and maybe work time. Because I feel that as adults, very often there are things we have to do, possibly with a goal in mind of saying I have to, I don't know, for example, I often have to deliver workshops or trainings. So that's something I have to do. And when I'm pursuing this obligation, or this promise that I made to the people I work for, I really struggle to be playful in that moment, because I'm more in this working mode of saying I have to do this, and then later I relax and then I play around. And I would be really curious, because for me that's a really difficult question. Is it possible to pursue goals and to reach goals and still just play, as you say, playing without a goal while doing something that you need to do, for example, because you have to earn money or because you promised, to somebody to do something? Is that somehow compatible?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a systemic question. I mean, it's the way societies are built, economies are built, and mentalities are built. And so it's a very deep root, and it's not a question to change. It's not possible to change this in a couple of months, because it's a kind of culture ground. Is a very solid, rooted in so many centuries ago from industrial revolution, that is not possible. But I love the expression of Donella Meadows, is dancing with the system, not fight the system, but dancing with the system. When you dance with the system and play, I think is the best way to dance with the system, and start to dance with a different music. The things, you can start to think in a different way, at least give others the possibility to think in a different way. And the key point of this, I think, is the concept, the word that you mentioned, goal. Because what is a goal? If you start to think about what is a goal, for me, it's a kind of big conundrum. By the way, I love this word, conundrum. Because, for example, recently I was reading an article about the percentage of projects in architecture and building that are completely on time and within the budget that was accorded. And what is so, I was astonished, because only 10% worldwide of the projects are finally achieved following the goals and the budget that were agreed, even signing a very formal and serious contract between the parts, the clients and the companies and whatever. Only 10%, and there is thousands and thousands and thousands of projects. It was a very interesting article because it was a very hard review of all the bibliography and about this. Only 10% of the architecture projects, and this is in architecture. So we have created, I think, a big fantasy to make us believe that we have a kind of control over the work process, and we have invented these sophisticated quantification tools, KPIs, all this language, all these concepts, all these statistics, all these indicators, the criteria that give us the false feeling of control in the work process, and then start the work process and occur a lot of unexpected things, as is normal because it's life, and life is so complex and unexpected, fortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, and push the project in a completely different direction and force the participants to reconsider, change, reinvent, modify in so many ways. And that's exactly the reason, because only the 10% of these projects ended as were initially thought. And that's the normal, that's the way. But we insist to maintain this illusion that is an illusion related with control and power. It's a kind of placebo effect we give ourselves to make us believe that everything is under control. And this is also clear in our relation with the children. We need to control the children. At the moment we don't control, and I have saw this so many times, because one of our parts of the children's board methodology that I have invented is invite children to meet in a room without adult presence. And you see the reaction of the adults, so anxious, so incredibly anxious, ask me what are they talking about, what they are thinking about. Do you think that we need to came back and order a little bit the dynamic of the meeting? So that's exactly the way we as an adults, we react when we lose control, and the goal-oriented projects are exactly a manifestation of this. I believe that those who are more easily detached from this kind of mirage are the ones who will enjoy doing what they do more, and who will make others enjoy it too. And that will be the goal achieved without even looking for it, because as we explained, play is not goal oriented, and this is the disruptive approach that can be possible. When you invite others to play freely, you are at the same time challenging this goal-oriented mindset. So that's for me the interesting thing to do this transition, to facilitate this transition from these goal-oriented projects that emerge from the systemic perspective that anyone is embedded, to another one. It's like a kind of make a space, make room, not trying to destroy anything, but also to transform and mutate into something different.
I think I agree with you that, of course, it's an illusion to be in full control of everything, right? But just to play a bit, maybe the devil's advocate, I think some people would argue that yes, goals are often not reached, but if we don't even set goals, it would be even worse, right? So, for example, an architecture company might argue that, okay, we're a bit over time, we're a bit over budget, but if we would not have set any goals, it would have been even more expensive, and we would not finish in 20 years. Um, what would you answer to such a person?
Again, I think is who is involved in the process, especially who defines who is a goal, the client, the company.
Normally, yes, huh?
That's
Normally,
the
it's the
that's the
client.
that's the point. I mean, if you involve others in the process, for example, in my case, I involve children and young people. They have a different approach about what is the purpose of the project. What is a project even? I mean, one dimension that is for me, I have learned from them is how much, a couple of examples. We start a project even without talking about values, the values that we share with our partners. It is important for us trust. It's important for us play. It's important for us failure. The capacity is important to us to unlearn the project, not to learn, to unlearn. I mean, this is so important, and what is surprising is that we have this idea of, okay, we can start a project no matter the values we have or the other part has. And we presume that more or less we share, but it's not true. I mean, sometimes we have very different values, and that's the cause of so many problems afterwards that emerge. Because at the end, we act as we follow our values. So if we have, if for us it's very important, or the children teach us or teach me this. If for you some specific value is important, and during the process of the project this value is challenged in some way, for sure the problems will emerge sooner or later. But we don't spend any time about this, the importance of values. We are obsessed with quantifiable, measurable criteria, resources like time and money. That's all. And that's mainly what guides us to design a project and to think about even a project. So when you invite others, but have you talked about your values? Values? But what nonsense. Values are not important on this table. What is important is how much cost and how much time do you spend. That is both sides of the same coin, by the way. And another important issue that I have learned from children in this regard is we evaluate usually projects as in what I call external outcomes. In terms of, okay, you do a building or you do a tool or an instrument or whatever is the outcome. But how much this project as a journey has impacted you inside? How much this project have changed internally, your idea of the other partner, your values, the way you see the reality, the context, the way you see your own work. That's another fundamental issue, dimension. that we usually don't keep in mind when we evaluate the projects. So it's a kind of loop. We have these goals very well quantified. We have this roadmap, and now we are calm because everything is under control. We think that we control the time. We believe that we control every potential, even in some calls that I see, this call of potential future scenarios and measure to neutralize these future scenarios. That is the peak of this fantasy, because it's very far away from the reality, and it's based on this artificial false idea of that you can control the time, control the process, control the outcomes, control the flow. So this is for me very important to is at the end relate with the question, who define the project? With the children's board that I'm working with, what is very inspiring and unique is that you invite children to co-decide, to make decisions in the same level, power level, that professionals and experts. And that changed everything. And they do this, by the way, by playing.
That's amazing, yeah. And I've seen that you have several events coming up. So if anybody's interested, please Google Jose and his work. Very fascinating formats and questions also that you're working on. I like both of the things that you just mentioned. So we can look at a project, for example, more with the focus on the goal, right? And then it may be more about numbers and time and reaching something. And on the other hand, we can also look at whatever we do through the process perspective. So is it fun to do that? What are the values while I'm doing that, right? I really like this distinction. And I think it's really true that we can maybe choose if it's for us more interesting, do something, to be in the process of something, or if it's just a very hard and unpleasant road to a goal somewhere that we defined. And the second point I also really liked was that about the inner and the outer perspective, right? And I feel also in our own work, my work, I really feel that I sometimes have this outer perspective when I think that I have to, or I really want to deliver something. But I also sometimes have projects where it's really about learning something from me. So I don't care so much about the delivery, maybe because it's something that that is new or something I try out, but it's really about learning, which is maybe more on the inner side. And I really like these distinctions. They make a lot of sense to me.
You can have this paradoxical situation that, okay, we have developed the project, we have achieved the goals, we have the outcomes, we have everything is on time, everything is accomplished, blah blah blah, whatever. But everyone is sad. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And that's for me. It relates with one story I have. It's an amazing story of this girl, 10 years old, visiting a museum of one of our children's board some years ago. After the visit, she with her school mates met with the staff of the museum, and she asked in the middle of the meeting, why the people who is working here is so sad. So it's exactly this. I mean, you can have the best museum of the world, but if the people who is working there is unhappy, is 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 not working.
Mm-hmm.
And play is a key point to restore, because the second question of the girl was how much time do you spend by playing together? And the answer was, well, we don't play because we are professionals, and in museums we do serious things, but we don't play. Play is for you, for children. And she explained, now I understand why people who is working here is so sad, because you don't play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's why we see contradictory play with work, play with do things, play with initiate projects, play with. That's for me the violence of the adulthood mood that disconnect us from this mindset. This is a very violent division if you think about this calmly. This takes a lot of constant forcing, pushing you outside your natural place, that is play. And when you have on the other side, you are on the other side, you start to think this this thing in a very unnatural way. But for you is the new natural, and the challenge is to recover this mindset in a new way, and because it's your true natural identity. But
Yeah.
during so many years in the schools, in families, your friends, in so many ways, in media, social media, whatever, the message was always the same: don't play, be a fruitful person, effort, spend time in something productive. But play is not productive. And because it's not productive and it's not efficient, it's against you, because you are working for your future, and future is connected with people who is working hard but not playing.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Um, as a final question, what would be your advice to people who want to work and live more playfully? After everything that we heard from you, I think maybe some people are convinced of, yeah, playfulness makes sense. Maybe I should play a little bit more in my life and in my work. Do you have any advice on what people can do?
Well, first of all, I would like to explain that adults can learn everything from kids. I mean, this is something very important I would like to remark, because this is a new model, a new paradigm of learning process. This week I will do a keynote in a very nice event. It's called Shield Globe Conference about digital safety and children. And my keynote is about exactly this: the new leadership role model of children in learning process, especially in digital, in online, the online context. Because you can learn everything from children. A what if mindset everywhere, every time, everyone. Question what is normal, and see on it the wonder, the magic, the unique. It doesn't matter if it's walking around the street or waiting a train. Be completely focused on the present. So this mechanism of flow connection that is so healing. Don't do your best, be the average, because it's enough about who you really are. You don't need to fake something that is not your really identity. And the children are what they are, with their failures, with their messy, worldwide, vision, with their, for us, unlogic perspective. And this is amazing because they are authentic, they are vulnerable. And because of this, they are authentic. And we, as an adults, we try constantly to appear as so strong, invulnerable, indestructible, and it's so fake, it's so false. And don't be afraid about your failures, learn to unlearn, make always the inappropriate questions, the king Nate questions, like this Susan question about the personnel of the museum, flow and resonate. Don't imitate nature, connect with much more with nature, because you are part of the nature, and this is something that children are connected. But more specifically, you can do so many things to start your own little play revolution in your life. Outdoors and indoors. Outdoors, you can start to consider children around you in a different way, much more as a teachers, as a role models, as a drivers, as a even triggers, that as a passive on project adults, human beings that we consider always in a very patronizing and condescending perspective. They are always sharing with you very generously important things, very inspiring things. It's a question to deep listen and to train your deep listen attitude, and try to, it's like a muscle, is train your deep listen and observation every single day, and have a kind of diary to write down and note in your notebook your discoveries, and follow up this during a period of weeks, and come back again and again. And I think this is a good way to start the process. And indoors, of course, I use some different techniques to invite people on the room to recover, to strength, to rebuild their inner child connection, that I think is fundamental to start to play again. I invite people to recover or remind some joyful memories of their childhood and bring them to their present, and try to describe them in all the details and identify this memory in all the emotional implications, connections that give you in terms of safety, in terms of colors, flavors, feelings, emotions, everything that can be a song, can be a draw, can be an object, can be a smell, can be a music, can be whatever, a cooking recipe from your grandma, can be whatever, but this is a kind of core value, a core defense. Is related with, I have one of them in the beach when I was 3 years old, enjoying a wonderful Sunday, playing with the sun, the water of the ocean, surrounded by my grandfather and grandmother, and a splendid day that is with me like forever. And this is my core, my anchor. But also you can write a letter to your inner child that is very interesting. What kind of things you would like to share to your little one when you were a child from now, from your perspective right now? What kind of things you miss that can be important for your life today, connected with this inner you, inner child that you were 30, 40, 50 years ago? And this is very important. This communication is also very important. And of course, an experiment that we are starting to do, and I think is so interesting, that is called reverse kindergarten. That is, use the kindergarten as a as a university, is as a kind of classroom, adults trying to learn how to play again, if you don't have sons or daughters or whatever, is a kind of experience to observe in detail how people play, how children play in this natural environment, or in a not in a playground, because playgrounds are so artificially designed, but sometimes so good kindergarten, especially in Montessori school, they give children a lot of margin and a space to freely play with different objects, textures, instruments, resources, and they are constantly playing. So they can teach you how to play again, and you can imitate them in your adulthood life by doing the same in your office, in your work, with your family, in the supermarket, waiting, in the airport, waiting your flight, in the hospital, whatever. And the impact is so big in your life.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Thank you so much, Jose, for this conversation. I think you brought really new perspectives into playfulness, what playfulness is, how we can use it, how we can maybe integrate it also more in our professional life. We had some very nice philosophical almost questions about playfulness and goals and purpose and processes and everything. So it was a really, really enjoyable conversation. If you're interested in Jose's work and you want to know more about that, you can find him on LinkedIn. And Jose, I think your company also has a website, right?
Yes, has a website. You can type in Google Culture Inquiry. Also, you have the profile of the company and what we are doing in LinkedIn with my personal profile. And you can follow me mainly in this website or in this social media. In the website, you have a section called We Listen to You, when you can find everything we are doing in terms of projects, in terms of portfolio, the conferences we are attending, the keynotes, the resources we are creating and sharing. So you are very welcome to contact me and start a new play adventure together.
Nice. Thank you so much, Jose, for your time. All the best for your future projects, and hopefully talk very soon.
Thank you, Paul. I'm so happy to be with you this morning, sharing my passions and dreams. Thank you.